So we're going to go over the Herbal Compendium assignment. Part A has already been assigned, and that was part of Module 5. And for Part A, you were to pick one of the herbs that you felt particularly drawn to at Jim Duke's or on your own trip to a botanical garden if you weren't able to attend our field trip. And Part A includes all the same sections and details as the larger compendium, and Part A will be included in the final compendium that's due November 30th. So for the final compendium, you're going to be picking 5 medicinal herbs, so 4 in addition to the one you chose for Part A. Your total list of 5 is going to be due to Holly and myself by October 18th for approval. And then the Part A, so your first herb completed, is due by October 5th. So each herb for your compendium is going to be essentially an extended monograph, and there's several sections of required information that I want to go over to be included for each herb. So Section A, the primary headlines are phytochemistry, so what are the main constituents, secondary metabolites in this herb, pharmacology, focusing on the pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics of this herb, so how does the body break down the herb and what are the primary actions and effects that this herb has within the body. Safety and adverse reactions. So that information you can get primarily from, for example, Natural Standard, the Botanical Safety Handbook put out by the American Herbal Products Association. You have access to both of those through your MUIH account, either on-site or at home. And under Module 3, there's the screencast about how to access those databases. If you have any questions about where to access this information, please feel free to contact myself or Holly, and we'll walk you through that. So some details under safety and adverse reactions could be, what is the Herbal Products Association safety rating? Is it a Class 1, Class 2? What are the common adverse reactions, either theoretical and or shown in clinical studies or case reports? We also want a section on drug interactions, and you can break that down into theoretical, moderate, likely, and that information I would recommend definitely getting from your Natural Standard database. Section B, we want to see energetics. So this can be from a Chinese medicine perspective, since you are Chinese students. So is this a damp herb? Is this drying? Is this aromatic? Is this bitter? We want to look at preparations, doses, formulations. So is this herb primarily given as a single, or is it commonly used as part of a formula? What are some of the primary formulas in which you can find this herb? We also want to see clinical indications based in both traditional Chinese medicine and modern research. So what that means is, from the traditional Chinese perspective, is this indicated for someone with damp heat, someone with excess wind? What would their pulse look like to tell you this would be a good herb for them? Clinical indications from a modern perspective. What are the specific pathologies that this herb has been shown effective in managing? So for example, high blood pressure or diabetes. Additional details, we want to see full nomenclature of the plants. So if we're looking at dandelion root, for example, you'd want to put Taraxacum officinale and family Asteraceae. We want to know the traditional Chinese medicine name for this plant, and any pharmaceutical names, so any actual drugs that contain this plant and what their patented names are. The references, both in text and in your reference section, should be in APA format. And then optional is to include photos, images, table of contents, protective cover, not necessarily for you all. You're going to be submitting electronically, but you can put a pretty cover page. And then again, the final submission is due by November 30th. So all 5 herbs have to have these sections for each herb. The point breakdown, 24 points for proper identification, including common name, botanical name, family parts used as medicine. 24 points for constituent profile. 32 points for overview of common methods of administration. 40 points for assessment of interaction potential, both clinically demonstrated and theoretical, with explanation of pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic rationale. And 16 points for at least 5 primary research sources or secondary reputable sources. And we have suggestions for where you can find your sources in the syllabus. 16 points for correct APA formatting, both in text and in your references section, and 8 points for appropriate grammar, punctuation, spelling, and sentence structure. So we're going to take a look at a couple of examples of these projects from students that they submitted in previous years. Let's look at Chrysanthemum first. This is a beautiful one. This one's very artistic. It really looks like a monograph you would see in a professional herbal book. So here we have Chrysanthemum or Zhuhua. We have the pharmacological name, Chrysanthemum floss, family, Asteraceae, species, Chrysanthemum morifolium. Energetics, so category is releases the exterior. Properties, sweet, bitter, slightly cold. Channels, lung and liver, so a lot of detail there for the energetics, not just hot, damp, cold, dry. Primary actions from a traditional Chinese perspective. Dosage, as well as formulations, and proper in-text citation, very, very important. Phytochemistry, so primary constituents, secondary metabolites in this plant. Pharmacology, so pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. There's not much on chrysanthemum, but you can find some. Again, more common formulas from the Chinese perspective. Clinical indications, safety, and herb-drug interactions, none were reported for this plant. So this is a beautiful example of what we're looking for. You can see it does not have to be entirely text-heavy, but it has to include all the headings and categories of information. They also did one for Forsythia, same student, same formatting, just so you can see. Looks very beautiful. The other option is to do one that is a little bit more text heavy, less with imagery. So you can see this one is very straightforward, broken down into sections. So we have for cinnamon, Chinese name, pharmaceutical name, family, standard species. Chemistry, pharmacology, so specific pharmacodynamics. They've apparently left out the pharmacokinetics. One thing that I want to point out with this particular this particular submission for the compendium is the student did not include in-text citations for any of this information. That's very, very important. If there are not any in-text citations, we will have to take off points for that. They do have a references section, which is excellent. But again, you need to cite in the text where this information is coming from. Safety, which they've broken down based on the similar categories and natural standards, so likely safe, possibly unsafe, pregnancy and lactation. And again, the studies that are showing where this information came from, again, you just need the citations there. Adverse reactions. Drug interactions, so are these classified as moderate or theoretical? Section B, energetics, so properties, channels, key characteristics, how to prepare this plant, common dosage, cautions and contraindications based on traditional Chinese medicine, clinical indications, again based on Chinese medicine here, signature formulas that include cinnamon, and this student included a lot of extra great information like earliest text recordings, notable commentaries, and the reference section. So you can see some of the text heaviness is going to depend on how much information there is on each given plant. There's a lot of information, a lot of clinical research into cinnamon, which is why this particular herb has a little bit more information. But you can make it as text-based or include images, however you'd like. So these are some great examples of what we're looking for this assignment. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email myself or Holly, and we will answer any questions that might come up in completing this assignment. We're looking forward to seeing the Herbal Compendium Part A in a few days, and to see your list of herb choices by next week.